The US is benefiting or losing when helping Ukraine?
America lost the media war. In Africa, in Latin America.
Donald Trump mocked Zelensky, calling him the greatest salesman in history. Quote, every time he comes, he walks away with the $50-60 billion.
Why would you like democracy? No, just give the power to this guy. It's easier, you know? He will tell me what to do.
You are independent.
Yes.
Moreover, you are a journalist and you fled your home country of Venezuela.
I believe in America. I believe in this country.
As a journalist, I must be unbiased, especially when discussing politics. I have to say that being Ukrainian, I find it quite challenging. Since you are neither Democrat nor Republican, I figured it would be fair and maybe even educating to discuss the American politics and the global picture, the global situation with you. You are independent.
Yes.
Moreover, you are a journalist and you fled your home country of Venezuela in 2014. Tell me more about your story, how you arrived to the United States.
I think that the reason why I'm here in the United States is the reason why I am, or I consider myself an independent politically. And it is because I fled persecution in my country. I was in an opposition party that was fighting the Venezuelan regime, the Venezuelan dictatorship. And, I got a lot of lessons. And one of the lessons that I got is like, don't compromise yourself with a party or an ideology, compromise yourself with principles. And I think that for the reason when I came to America, the first thing that came to my mind, like to be active socially and to contribute to society, was to become a journalist, because from the perspective of a journalist, although you have some bias, still you can at least say the truth and don't feel bad about it, because if you're a politician, when you do politics, you usually cannot say the truth, or not most of the times. And I think that's one of the freedoms and one of the things that I like most about journalism. And for the same reason, I consider myself an independent.
Have you always been independent?
No. So if I tell you about what I am politically, I will say that I'm in the center right, center left, center right. In what sense? In the sense that, for example, I believe that America, particularly America, needs to reform their social net, the social support that people have, so we don't get to a situation where you can have a revolution. And to do that, for example, in America, we should have some kind of free healthcare. And that is something that we don't have here. And even countries that are really conservative, like England, they have a free healthcare system. So are these little things that take me a bit more, or make me look more like a reformist, or even some people will say that I'm socialist here in America, but I consider myself on the center right of the political spectrum. Why? Because I believe in the rule of law. I believe in the freedom of people to take care of their own destiny. I believe that nobody should be sustained by the state. I believe that the freedoms that were given to us, nobody can take them. And what we need to do is expand the freedoms, not to restrict them. And I'm not a socialist. I'm not a communist. I don't believe that everybody's out to get you. I don't believe that there is a constant struggle between classes. What I believe is in the determination of every individual to reach their dreams. And I think that we should have a state that help you get there, but not give you everything. And I think that is one of the issues that I saw in my country. And for the reason I oppose the government, I can tell you an example. Before in my country, to graduate as a doctor, you needed to go to medicine school for 5 years and then do a master's. In my country, they created a program where you could be graduating as a doctor in 2 years. That's not okay. That's a disaster.
It's possible, but what kind of doctor are you going to be?
What kind of doctor are you going to be? Exactly. So it's not just giving stuff to people because they want it. Also, like, oh, so you want to graduate from college? Okay, okay, graduate. It's okay. We will give you the grades.
Why
No
would they do
effort.
that?
Huh?
Why would they? What's the
Because of
point?
politics. I think it was because of politics. It's because of this idea of social justice that is wrongly applied. We need social justice. Now, I believe in social justice when you teach people to fish and not when you give them the fish. You know?
I've known you as a fighter for democracy, for the truth. When you fled your home country, do you have your family there? Do you have friends there who stayed in your home
Yeah, my
country?
mom stayed in my country as well as my sister and her children. And my father, he left to Chile like 4 years ago.
How are they doing there?
In Venezuela, it's really hard. So I have to send them money every month to sustain some of the main, staples, like, for example, food. My mom retired as a supervisor in a hospital, and her pension is like $5 a month, something like that. And in my country, yes, it's socialist, but everything on the street has capitalist prices. I think you should remember something of that because all the Soviet countries went through that when the Soviet Union collapsed. And so, yeah, the situation is just like that. You go out and you want to buy a pound of cheese, and the pound of cheese is $5, and you just made $5. So they need a lot of help. Like, the situation in my country is dire, 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 dire.
Is it safe to live there?
It's not safe. It's not safe. It's not safe if you are just a citizen wanting to progress, wanting to be successful, and creating a company or whatever, or if you want to be a student, or if you want, or yeah, and it's even worse if you want to be a politician. I can tell you something that just happened yesterday. There was this candidate that was wrongly banned to run for elections by the electoral authority in my country. And I just read today that two of her closest collaborators were in jail without due process. They were just taken out of the street, got into a car, and disappeared. And then the general attorney of Venezuela came out and said some stuff. But I was like, you are saying it after the fact. You are saying that they did this after you took them out of the street, after you kidnapped them. So in my country, tweeting that the government should go is grounds enough for them to take you to jail and to disappear you. I remember when in my case, in my particular case, I had a lieutenant of the Venezuelan army knocking on my door and telling me, like, hey, if you don't stop writing that, whatever you're writing on Twitter, we're gonna disappear you, we're gonna torture you, we're going to rape you, and you are nobody. Who are you? You're not in the press, you're not in the media, nobody knows you. If you disappear, who cares? And that's when I decided to come out, because I knew that I won't stand a chance in front of the judicial system of my country. And I think that is a situation, like, if you notice, it's a situation that is leaving a lot of people, for example, in Russia. In Russia, you cannot count with a free and fair trial. That's impossible.
Yeah.
You don't have any chance, you don't stand any chance in front of them. So yeah, for the reason I'm here.
Well, you said that Venezuela lost the democratic war to the Russian-backed
Venezuela dictatorship. Yeah.
What does it feel like? As a Ukrainian whose country is still fighting for its freedom, I can't imagine such a scenario.
I feel unrooted. I feel like when I took that plane and I finally left, I felt like if a piece of me stayed. I don't feel complete. I don't feel complete, and I don't feel complete because I don't have a place to come back. For example, I know that Ukrainians can come back home and they can go visit their families, even though it's difficult. I cannot even do that. Like, if I get out of a plane in Venezuela and try to check on immigration, they're gonna jail me right away. So I don't have any chance while that government is there to see my places, my friends, eat my food, see my soccer team, all these kind of cool things that you have back home. I don't have any of that. I was totally unrooted, and they do it and they make it even more difficult. For example, I cannot get a passport. I cannot simply get a passport. Like once you defect, once you get out of the country and you come to the United States, and they know that you are willingly saying what is happening in Venezuela, they put you in a list and you cannot get a passport. It's as simple as that. So I have to wait until I can get my American citizenship to be able to travel abroad, because my own country doesn't want to recognize me as a citizen. If I come back to Venezuela while that regime is there, I'll have to apply for a visa. I'll have to apply for a visa to enter the country where I was born. That's how it is. That's how it is. And it is like that for millions and millions of Venezuelans that left since 2014, since the time of the Maidan. And the Venezuelans that left in the 3 years after that, most of the people that got out with me were people that we were like, okay, this is our last chance. 2014, and I think that maybe in Ukraine you had that feeling, like if we don't do it now, these guys are going to run over us and we won't be able to take them off us. And we lost. We lost miserably because our leadership was poor directed, and they didn't have a strategy on what to do and how to get rid of these guys. And of course, I can tell you that, for example, my government was supported with technology, with armor, and with advisors, Russian advisors, Russian armor. I remember, for example, that in that year, what is the name of that ship? The Peter the Great, which is the flagship of the Russian Navy, visited my country. So to that point. See? So it was like a really unequal fight that we were giving, and we were not as violent as you were because we didn't know yet. See? So yeah, we thought that we were only fighting against the government. Now that I'm here, and after many years, and after reading and after researching, I realized oh my God, there's an international, there's an international movement towards annihilating democracies everywhere. And in my country, what happened was just an episode of what is going on in a lot of places around the world, But at that moment, I didn't realize that. I can tell you that, for example, in the main military base of my country, there are Cuban, Russian, Iranian, and Chinese advisors telling them how to repress and how to oppress people. How do you do to disappear a person? How do you do to soften a political prisoner? For example, this guy, the guy that went and knocked my door, he told me, when I told him, oh, so you're the one who's gonna turn me in? Okay, I don't care. I'm a man. I was like, oh, but remember that you live here with your sister and her children. So I was sure that if I didn't comply in that moment, they will come after my family. And that's what they do. If it's not you, then they come after your family. So
yeah, that's what they do.
I feel free. I feel free here. I'm blessed, and I'm so grateful for the United States for everything that this country gave me. But the thing that I appreciate the most is the First Amendment, the freedom of speech. That's fascinating, and I love it. I have never had that feeling before in my country. I'm just telling you that. And maybe if you are an Ukrainian citizen, and I have read a bit, I don't know if, correct me if I'm wrong, but if you were Russian or Russian-speaking Ukrainian before, maybe people will tell you some stuff, but okay, cool. You speak Russian and that's it. It's a democracy, okay, whatever. But in my country, being of the opposition puts you in a position of danger immediately. So I feel good because I'm here, I'm safe, but I feel unrooted, and I feel that my country doesn't want me, my country doesn't want me there. And that's really sad.
I have to say that I'm impressed by your knowledge about the global history. You're the first person in this country that I met who knew about my hometown, Kamenets-Podilsky, where I'm from. You even knew that it was a capital of Ukraine during the Ukraine-Soviet War in 1920. and other historical facts, I was shocked. Where did you learn all of that? Is that what you studied? But
Well,
before becoming a historian?
no, well, I'm a historian from my country. My major is universal history, but the thing is like, once I get interested in a topic, I read everything that I can. For example, I can tell you an example. A Ukrainian coworker told me about Shevchenko history of Ukraine, and I got the book and I'm reading it. You know, it's like the first, like it's the first total or general history of Ukraine. You know, so I wanted to see it. I wanted to read it. Okay, this guy wrote this in 1920. Like this is the original stuff. You know, so when I'm interested in a topic, and in this sense, I was interested in Ukraine because of my country. I felt that we have the same fight. So I need to read this book as well as I read the book about my country. Like I like to go to the origins of stuff, because for example, I'll come and listen. Oh, you know, because Ukrainians are Nazis. So the Ukrainians that were in Maidan fighting Klitschko and all these guys. Oh, those are a bunch of Nazis. You know, I was like, Nazis, but they are Slavs. How can you be a Slav and I'm being like a Nazi for real? Like that doesn't match, you know. Like it's so ideologically wrong, you know. And then and it got worse when Zelensky got elected. And bro, but this guy is Jewish. I mean, come on. How can you say they're Nazis? Like if they were Nazis, for like they would have killed Zelensky, or they would have known to topple Zelensky out of power, and they didn't do it. So like when I see like those kind of outrageous things, I just like to research and make sure that I have all the information. And for the reason I consider also myself in the middle, because if you come and tell me something that's really outrageous, I won't believe it right away. I will be like, I need to check this out, because I don't know if that is true or not. For example, the Holodomor. Nobody even knows about it. I
It's
wanted to
true.
know. I wanted to know if it
It's
is.
huge.
I wanted to know if it was real
It's
or
the same
not.
as Holocaust, and nobody talks about it.
Nobody talks about it. So I even saw, I looked for pictures. Like it was this British guy. He worked for a steel plant in the Donetsk region, and he took his camera and he took a bunch of cameras of the famine, and then he took all of that to England. You can see it with your very eyes what happened in that moment. So you don't need to. So I like to see it. I like to see it with my very very eyes. So for the reason I know a lot, because once I get interested in a topic, I go to the end.
That's impressive. Since the Russian full invasion of Ukraine 2 years ago, both parties have supported Ukraine's funding. A lot of lives have been taken since in the center of Europe, but the overall picture was somewhat predictable until today. Even with the slow delivery, Ukraine still has been receiving some assistance. This year, we'll be having the presidential elections, and nobody knows what to expect. What are your expectations from these elections, and what effect do you think these results will have on the world?
Okay, so first, I believe in America. I believe in this country. You know, for example, in 2022, everybody was waiting for a red wave. They were waiting for the Republicans to just destroy Biden and the Democratic Party in Congress, and that didn't happen. Why? Because there were this bunch of people that thought about democracy, that thought about human rights, that thought what America really is, and they voted against all these candidates that were bringing the other nasty version of America that Americans of good don't like. You know, so I know the election is going to be difficult, and I know that a lot of people has a lot of discontent because of the state of the economy. You know, and it's difficult to make this election about Ukraine or about a global phenomenon. You know, but I still trust that Americans are not gonna let Trump win again. Just because this country is not like that. And I have always trusted that. You know, for example, Trump has been prosecuted. Trump needs to sell probably 2 buildings. He cannot do whatever he wants. And that's what I like about this country, you know? So while there is still people fighting for what is right, America is gonna do right. Now, there is a reality, and that's part of that kind of sucks about the system in America. It's like the power is so atomized that 10,000 guys or 10,000 people in Wyoming can decide if Ukraine survives this war or not. And it's as simple as that. Like 10,000 guys in Wyoming, they will say, oh no, we're gonna vote for this right-wing guy and he doesn't like Ukraine. And then when the guy goes to Congress, he votes again against money for Ukraine. And that can happen, you know? So I have those two dimensions of America. The power is too atomized, so at the end you don't know what is going to happen, but I still trust that at least for the presidency and the main spots that are important, for example, to preserve democracy all over the world, I think America is gonna comply with their duty. They need to. They need to, because if not, it's gonna be a betrayal. A betrayal not only to Ukraine or to Taiwan or to other people that is fighting for democracy, it's gonna be a betrayal to themselves, to their values. And I think like for a lot of people, that is important.
What are you waiting for? Another recession? Another pandemic? Another war? Another crazy election? You know you need to protect your money. But how? Central banks have been buying up gold at the fastest pace on record. That's because gold is where the world turns in times of crisis. Call Thor Metals Group for a free report on how gold can help protect your portfolio from financial risk. Go to thorgoldreport.com or call 1-844-944-THOR to speak with a live advisor.
At the recent campaign rally in Ohio, Donald Trump said he actually mocked Zelensky, I would say, calling him the greatest salesman in history. Quote, every time he comes, he walks away with the $50-60 billion. Well, it's well known that Trump doesn't represent all Republicans in the country. I'm curious, what would you tell those who think that America shouldn't fund Ukraine's defense against Russia's invasion, but use that money instead to help the homeless? We'd like to know whether the U.S. is benefiting or losing when helping Ukraine.
Oh, well, look. So I think I saw the number the other day on what the United States had given to Ukraine in the past 2 years is not even 3% of the total defense budget or something like that. But I'm sure that it's less
Ukraine's
than 10%.
Budget or American?
No, American, but not the whole budget. I'm just talking about the defense budget. So Ukraine doesn't take more than 10%. I will say not even 6%. We can check that later. But they don't take more than that of the total of what America invests on weapons every year. It's like, I don't know, it's like change for the Department of Defense, what they give to Ukraine. And actually, if you notice the kind of armaments that the Ukrainians are getting, it's the stuff that the Americans don't want to use anymore because it's from the 80s and the 90s, but it's still enough and good enough to take on the Russians and defeat them with a smaller army. You know? So I think that argument is dumb. And you know what is the dumbest argument ever? Because the Republicans don't care about the homeless people. Because if they cared about the homeless people, they will be voting for housing laws that will provide a home to that people. As we started the conversation, they will be providing that people with a safety net that will let them get out of poverty, out of homelessness. They will have recovery programs financed by the state so that people can recover out of addiction, for example, and they can be still, productive citizens, also productive members of society. But they are not doing that. They are not doing that. They don't care. It's just a speech. It's just propaganda. And as part of that is that these people, this right wing of the Republican Party, they are allied with the right wing, the Russian right wing, the really religious, really orthodox, conservative, right-wing Russians, and they agree in all politics. They agree in authoritarianism. They agree on taking away democratic rights for people. They agree on racism. They agree on abortion. They agree on, for example, creating a system where you have a caudillo, just a strong guy, and whatever else comes, it doesn't matter. So that's Trump's people. Like the people that is voting against Ukraine is not the whole Republican Party. It's just a clique of 30, 40 people And they know what they are doing. This is not about the homeless. This is not even about Biden. This is a project. This is a international. This is a global project. They're allied. They want to reproduce what is happening in America, in Russia here, and Trump is their person to do that. Or maybe they will look for somebody, for someone younger. Like I don't remember, like for example, they were saying that about DeSantis. Oh, DeSantis is gonna be stronger than Trump and whatever, and he's younger. They are looking for that. They are looking for their Putin. That sector of the Republican Party is looking for their Putin. Now, it's all the Republican Party? No, but the rest of the Republican Party, they are scared. They just gave the party away to Trump, which is a mistake. I think that the Democrats are going to win just because of that. Trump is not a palatable candidate for a general election. Independents don't like him. And the Democrats is a strong vote.
You also mentioned that Ukraine is currently the most important front. What do you perceive in a World War III?
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on that viewpoint?
Yeah, so as I told you before, I think that when Putin took over, a lot of things happened. Like, for example, here in America, there was a scholar called Francis Fukuyama. He wrote a book called The End of History. So in that book, he says that since the Soviet Union collapsed, like the dominion of America over the world will be unstoppable, right? And this book was read in Iran, it was read in Russia, it was read in China, you know? So starting from Russia, nobody told Russia when NATO invaded Yugoslavia in the 90s. The United States just got into there, and that's it, you know? And that for the Russians was an offense because the Americans didn't look at them as an empire or as a powerful rival anymore. You know, so all this bragging of Putin is just to say, no, I'm here. Like we're Russians, we're an important country. We're a superpower. You need to take us in account. We're a superpower. You know, so I think starting from there, Putin was like, okay, how can I do that? How can I put Russia again in the world scenario? And of course, they have a bunch of guns, and they had enough money because of their, gas and oil investments to invest everywhere in the world. You know, and that's what they are doing. For example, Ukraine is the main front. Russia was or still is good friends with Israel, particularly with Netanyahu. What is Netanyahu doing in Israel? He's taking powers away from the Supreme Court so he cannot go to jail. What is doing Bukele in El Salvador? He just reelected himself when the constitution over there prohibits re-election. What is Trump trying to do here? He's trying to say that he's immune to everything, that no law can touch him. What is that? That's authoritarianism. And that's everywhere. Myanmar, they had a Nobel Prize winner as a president. And a military junta just overthrew her. What happened in China? Reductions of liberties. Everywhere is happening. Everywhere. Like I read a piece the other day, and looks like democracies are breaking everywhere. And that's not something that's not casual. There is a work. And they pray in the sense of like it's easier to obey than to think by yourself. Democracy is so hard. Democracy is so hard to sustain because you need to be certain of what you are doing every day, and everything that you do needs to be driven into the protection of the democratic system. Everything that you do, and people sometimes don't realize that. They will come and say, oh yes, because the economy under Putin, we're making a lot of money. Oh yeah, and they just killed my son, but they gave me $80,000. I just read that. They're giving $80,000 to the families of dead soldiers in Russia. How come? You know, and so these governments are taking all this economic power and the laziness and, you know, the disregard of the West and the cheap stuff that you can buy from China and all of that, and you forget about it. You forget of what is going on around you until it gets to you. In my country, we lost already. That episode of the war was lost by the Venezuelan Democrats. I count myself among them. We lost. I have been out of my country for 10 years. That government has been there for 25 years. It's the longest, or it's going to become the longest ever regime in my country. And what can we do? The only way to oppose that people is with guns, as you are doing with Russia. That's the only way. Orban in New Hungary. Viktor Orban, like, what is he doing? I don't remember the guy in Slovakia, but he's doing the same. And it's not about, in this sense of, for the reason I'm independent, it's not being conservative or being liberal. It's like, I think the most important thing is that at the end, you can be liberal or conservative. It's not that you have a choice, even if people say that it's like a fake choice. No, you have actually a choice. You can decide what way you can go. In Russia, for example, you cannot decide. You support Putin or you gonna pay the consequences. In my country, okay, you support the revolution or you're gonna face the consequences. What is happening in Israel with the protesters against Netanyahu? They are kicking him in the ass. Why? Because they don't care. They don't care about democratic values. So I think that is the great crisis of our time, and that's the war. The war is between countries that want to sustain democratic values, democratic principles, and countries that, like their system failed them, and they became autocracies or authoritarianism or systems of oppression.
How do you think the West and the US competing with this Russian communism?
Well, I told you we lost the media war. That's lost.
You mean America lost?
America lost the media war. In Africa, in Latin America, in some countries in Asia, you talk to them and they will be like, well, we try to be with them and we try to be allies with them, and when we need them, they turn us their back, or they failed to us, or they took our resources and then they left. The Russians and the Chinese.
This propaganda works in building the mindset of the actual citizens and entire generations, right? Well,
Yes. So they think that maybe democracy is not good. Why would you like democracy? No. Just give the power to this guy. It's easier. He will tell me what to do.
So you think that the West should get better at protecting the freedom of media and speech?
I think like everything started with the failure of the United Nations. Like the United Nations was supposed to preserve and protect all these kind of values everywhere in the world, and they didn't do it, and now it's too difficult. What can you do? Well, what can you do is invest money. If you don't want to send armies or you don't want to send weapons inside a country, invest in the Democrats, in the people that is fighting for the same principles that you sustain here, and do it for real. Because, for example, and I saw the other day an interview in Homskade. I don't know how to say it. Homskade. It's like a Homskade.
Hromotska?
Yeah, that thing. But it's so difficult to say for me. So I was watching an interview, and a soldier said, "Yeah, we're fighting here and we're fighting hard, but we don't know if tomorrow we're gonna be left by our own." That's not possible. Like if you are in the front lines, defending your country, your democracy against authoritarianism, you shouldn't be thinking of what is happening, behind the front lines. You should be focusing on, protecting your country. And that doesn't happen. It didn't happen in my country too. We were waiting for years for a more consistent and more firmer American help. Like, yes, we are with you. We are going to the end, like they said about Ukraine. But did you see?
Said it only recently, but in the beginning of the war, they were just sitting and waiting when
to
Ukraine will lose.
Yeah. So that's the big issue. So what I think, like we had become soft. Like we have become soft in the sense that we are not energetic enough when we need to defend our values. For example, for me, it's dumb when people say that we need to defund the army or to reduce the budget of the army. That's dumb. You don't have Chinese in San Francisco at the doors in San Francisco because you are investing 13% of your budget in the army, and it's a huge investment. Nobody can match that. Like Russia, China, Iran, what is the other country, and Germany together don't invest even 15% of what America invests in their army. And that investment is what protects this interaction that you and me are having right here.
Actually, yeah, that's true. And now I believe.
Could you have been having this conversation in Donetsk, in Severodonetsk, in Luhansk? Can you be talking like this over there?
No, you can't.
You can't.
Even get a doctor's appointment if you don't get the Russian passport in the annexed occupied territories.
Yeah. So people don't realize that. All the rights that you have, this system allows you to be soft.
Thanks for watching us. If you're enjoying this episode, please click the like and subscribe button and leave a comment below to support our channel. Your single click would make a tremendous difference to us, as this is one of the first videos we published after rebranding and reconnecting with you. Subscribe to my channel and join my journey.
But now, when I saw these guys in Bucha having to get a rifle and put on, like a barricade because the Russian armor was coming, I was like, oh, there you are. See? So this is what people need to see with their very eyes. In any moment, it can be you. And I think, like, for me, that was kind of it works a lot for people here as an eye-opener on what can happen if we are not firm and energetic when defending the democratic rights of society. Like the Ukrainians did in 2014. I will never forget Klitschko banging on the police for weeks. You
like Klitschko?
I like what he did at that moment. I know that he's now in a power struggle, or he wants to race within the politics of Ukraine. I don't know. I don't get into that. For me, it's that's another topic, and I don't get too much into that. But what Klitschko did is what a decent citizen does, and I did the same.
Many other citizens.
Yes, and I did the same in my country for 3 months. I protested. I was shot at. I had to run for my life. People running after us in motorcycles to get us to jail. People checking on my bag every time I went to work, because I was within the was in an area where the protests were really heavy. So police will check on your bag to see if you had something.
It's really worth investing in your army, because Ukraine is a neighbor of Russia, but your country is across the ocean. It still got affected even more.
And education. Education is so important. So, for example, when people say, "Oh, why?" Well, but we should send only weapons to Ukraine. We shouldn't be paying for Ukraine's education or government stuff. I'm like, if you don't support the government stuff, who will fight against corruption in Ukraine? Everybody knows that that's the big issue over there.
And I have to say, I love seeing the progress.
Oh, yeah.
Of the corruption reduction. It's just unbelievable. Within 2 years,
generals going to jail or having to answer for what they did.
Yeah.
And that's when I see that, a lot of people will tell you, "Oh, you see, they are still corrupt." Bro, they are telling it. They are saying it out loud that these people is stealing. That didn't happen in Ukraine 6 years ago, 7 years ago. It has been a process, and that's what people need to see too. It's beautiful how Ukraine had transformed from this Soviet archaic society, a system of secrets, a system of oppression, to a society where if you don't like something, you just say it and that's it. And you have a camera there, and the president has to listen, and he has to also, pay attention to that. That's the life that we all deserve. And that's the fight. It's simple. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, the freedom.
Yeah.
Speech. Actually, both of us are immigrants, and we actually went to the same school. We arrived to this country around the same time, 2013, 2014. We studied journalism. How was your experience in freedom of speech and doing the journalism in Illinois? And maybe, this experience would be helpful for some Americans, because I personally love to hear the foreigners' perception of my country. What was your experience of writing for the newspaper?
I think it was incredible. So let me tell you this. So in my country, I'll write stuff in a blog, and then I will have people threatening me via Twitter, or as I told you, knocking on my door and whatever. And I remember that I wrote a piece because I got a scoop that the vice president of enrollment hired a friend, and this friend didn't even went to school. Like, she was working in Michigan and she didn't show up to Chicago, or she came for a couple months. And I got the scoop and I wrote a piece about it, like, oh, I think this person is stealing money from the school. And our mentor, Eddie Rubinovitz, she told me, you need to be careful. You cannot be doing that like that. Are you sure? And I was like, of course I'm sure. I'm telling the truth. I'm sure that I was telling the truth. So I believe, like, here in America, while you are telling the truth, nobody can come after you. Unless, well, it happens like happened with the poem whistleblower that we don't know yet what happened. but in general, in America, if you have the truth, you have the truth. What can they say? And actually, when I wrote that piece, a lot of people asked for me to be expelled or to be investigated. But I was like, I don't care. Like, come and refute that. Refute my article. Go refute my piece. And they couldn't. So I love that about America, that if you write the truth and you know how to sustain your truth, then, yeah, you can just say it.
What an interesting observation. I grew up in Ukraine and did journalism here in America as well, but I never thought of it from this perspective. I would think of being tolerant to somebody's opinion. What if I will hurt somebody's feelings? But that's because I was raised in
the speech of Ukraine, yeah.
But this is an interesting, contrasting.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, when I went to this workshop in New York with a guy that writes for the New Yorker, and he comes and tells me, you are not a nun. You are not an activist. You are a writer. You are a journalist. And your duty is to say the truth. It doesn't matter who falls. It doesn't matter who you hurt. Of course, like, the Society of Professional Journalism says that you need to do everything in your power to reduce harm when you are writing a story, but you still have the duty to say the truth, So I think that's the most important thing. Like, there's nothing that can go against the truth. For example, Trump has been saying for decades that he's a millionaire. Now we know that's a lie. If you didn't pay taxes and I paid taxes, that means that at the end my balance was better than yours. So if you're telling me that you didn't pay tax and I had to pay $100 in taxes, that means that I made a super habit that day. I made more money than the money that I spent. So I have more money than you, actually. It doesn't matter how much money you have in the bank because you owe that money. That money is not yours. So I like here in America that you say the truth, and the poker card castles start to crumble really, 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 really quick. That's impressive. And that's what I like about the system.
Actually feel this sense of freedom, democracy, that you really enjoying.
Oh, yeah.
This freedom. Thank you for sharing your perspective. Thank you for fighting for democracy. You make a difference.
Yeah.
And what you do matters.
I don't know. But
Thank you so much.
I hope you read a book about how Venezuela got free.
You know what? Yes.
And how Ukraine won the war.
I hope so too.
Yes.
Because I really meant saying that I can't imagine what you went through. You probably went through different stages of shock, then accepting the truth.
Yeah, like, your people hate you, like, your government hates you, like that feeling is terrible.
You don't think that there is a way in the near future to kick out the government?
They're trying. But the thing is, we're really disorganized. Like, so every time they try to do something, they're really quick. Like, they have Russian intelligence. So, like, they can detect that kind of things really easy.
These fucking Russians.
Oh my God, they're terrible. They're really good at what they do, though. Because I think, like, Russia is a beautiful country, but they need to change, I will never visit that country if they doesn't change. I will never go to
know
Cuba. That people is
Most people really are brainwashed, and they don't, even if you tell them the truth and prove them with the facts, they close their eyes. They don't want to see, they don't want to hear you. It's not going to work.
it's the money. I think it's like while Russia has money to pay people for stuff, like it's gonna be really difficult for Russians to wake up.
I have to say that I underestimated the importance and how brave the Ukrainians were when they went to not only protest when they kicked out Yanukovych from our country, but to actually sacrifice their lives.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
And it didn't work. That kind of protest didn't work in Belarus.
No,
Didn't help your country, which is across the oceans from Russia.
it didn't.
I can only now I can see how brave, how huge move that was.
You were like, so you're the first country. Why do you think Putin hates you so much?
Oh yeah,
Because
he
you
always did. If you're reading Shevchenko now,
Yeah,
it's been like for hundreds of years.
yeah. But
That's
why?
the history.
Where is the hate that you are always resisting? And that's what people don't understand. That Ukrainians had been always resisting,
Oh, exactly.
always resisting, always for centuries.
He thought if it worked in Belarus, it will work with us.
I just read what the Russians did in the Caucasus. You know, like Kazan, in the Kazan region, like just across, it's on the other side of the Azov Sea. I don't remember what is the province. Where is Sochi?
Mhm.
You know, and what they did to that people, they killed everyone, and they just replaced the population with Russian people. And I was like, I cannot believe they did that. Like they just killed all the people there, and they just brought Russian people there and recolonized the place. Like, yeah.
Yeah, sounds like Russians.